My gas went wrong at 90 meters. In water, so black the helmet light only showed me the next arm's length of steel. You know before you know. There's a taste and a thickness in the breathing, and the work gets stupid. Your hands start doing things a half second behind where you told them to go. I said it out loud into the comms. I said my gas is bad. I said I'm aborting. I'm coming to the bell. I said it in the voice you use, the flat one, because panic down there kills you faster than the water does. And I did not get to come up. And somewhere in the next few minutes the dark stopped being outside me and started being inside me. And the last clear thing I remember is my own hand missing the bell's frame twice before the bellman got hold of my harness and hauled me in. I lived. 20-something hours in the chamber, a lot of oxygen, and a doctor telling me how close is close. Everybody on that spread went home. But there had been a near fatality on that job, and there was going to be an investigation, and everyone already knew the shape of the answer. The diver was alone in the water. The diver panicked. Nobody was down there with him, so it must have been him. 18 years I dove commercially. 18 years, saturation and air, North Sea winters, and I never had an incident, because that is the whole job. A diver who watches his gas and his procedure and never lets anyone rush him is a diver who gets old. I was famously slow on my checks. The young lads used to time me. Careful was the whole thing I sold. It was the only thing I ever sold. And in the time it takes a gas supply to go wrong, I was the diver who panicked. I want to tell you about the man who put me there. His name was Rask, and he was the dive supervisor, sitting in dive control with the panel in front of him and my life in his hands. The supervisor runs the dive. He watches the panel, he talks to the diver, and when the diver says get me out, the diver comes out. That is not a courtesy. That is the whole architecture of trust the entire industry sits on, because a man at 90 meters cannot save himself. And that day the weather window was closing, and the job was one task from done, and finishing meant not coming back out here for another week at God knows what cost. And there had already been a problem flagged on the gas panel before I ever went down, a fault the log had, the kind you clear before you put a man in the water. So when I called that my gas was bad and I was aborting, Rast told me to finish the task. He told me it was probably nothing, that the panel looked fine to him, that I was nearly done. I called aboard a second time. And he kept me down. And the gas kept going out of spec while I stayed on the bottom under his orders, and my head went, and I nearly died on the end of an umbilical in the dark. And the second I was in the chamber and stable, Rast's story was already made. He did not tell them he'd kept a diver down on a flagged gas fault to save a weather window. He told the company, and then he told the diving regulator, that the diver panicked, mismanaged his own gas, and created the emergency. He pointed at the water. At me. Here is what that costs a diver. It is not just the job. That certification is the whole trade, and a finding that you panicked and caused a near fatality ends it. No contractor puts a man who panics on a spread again, and the word travels through this industry faster than any paperwork. 18 years, and diving is the only thing I have ever done. And there is something worse than the money, which is that they would write it down forever that I lost my nerve in the water. For a diver, that is the one thing you cannot have said about you. I sat in that chamber for a day with nothing to do but think about it, a 42-year-old man who'd been told he might never dive again, for a dive I had twice asked to end. When they let me out, I called my wife, and I told her I nearly didn't come up, and somebody was saying it was my fault, and that I was going to prove what I'd said down there. I said it out loud, so I'd have to go do it. The bellman had heard all of it. Every word, on the same comm circuit. But he was 26 and new to SAT, and crossing a dive supervisor is how a young diver never gets another contract. and I was not going to hang a scared kid's career against a supervisor's as my whole defense. This wasn't going to get fixed by whose account the company preferred. It was going to get fixed by the one thing in dive control that keeps every word and every reading and doesn't care who's running the dive. Because here is what Rask forgot, the way these people always forget the one thing. Dive control records everything. The panel logs my depth and my bottom time and my gas mix and the pressures and the flows and every alarm it throws, all of it stamped in time. And the comms are recorded continuously, every word between the diver, the bellman, and the supervisor, and the voices that said them. And the gas management log keeps the faults that were flagged before anyone went in the water. The systems do not care about the weather window, and they do not care that Rask is the supervisor. They just keep what happened and who said what. So through the diving incident investigation, and with my union pushing, we pulled all of it. The panel data, the comms recording, the maintenance log, and we put them on one timeline, the last 10 minutes of that dive, laid out to the second. The maintenance log showed the gas fault flag before the dive, uncleared. The panel data showed my mix going out of spec while I was still on the bottom. And the comms recording had me, my own voice, and I have listened to it more times than is good for me, calling that my gas was bad and calling to abort, twice, flat and calm, exactly the way you're trained. And it had Rask, in his own voice, telling me to finish the task. There is no version of a panicking diver who sounds like that. The tape ends the argument in about 40 seconds. They held the incident review in a room on shore. The company's diving manager was there. The regulator's inspector was there. Rask was there, in a good jacket, still certain that a supervisor's word beats a diver's, the way it usually does. My rep put the panel data and the comms recording up on one timeline, and we didn't argue. We played the last 10 minutes. The flag gas. My first abort call. His order to press on. My second. His order again. The mix going bad. And the bellman hauling me in. The inspector asked Rask one question. He asked him why, when the diver called abort twice, the diver was not brought up. Rask didn't have an answer because it was his own voice on the recording. The bellman, hearing the tape back me up, said out loud what he'd heard on that circuit. And I watched it land on Rask in front of the diving manager and the inspector, the moment he understood that dive control had been recording the entire time, and the panel doesn't feel a weather window closing and doesn't care who's got the con. They cleared me completely. My certification was never really in danger once the comms recording was in front of the regulator. The tape had me calm and asking to come up. I went back offshore with the back pay and a finding on the record that the diver acted correctly and the incident was caused by a supervisor keeping a diver down on a flagged gas fault. The company rewrote the thing that mattered. A diver's abort call is now absolute and immediate. No discussion, no finish the task, and diving is locked out entirely on a flagged gas fault until it's cleared and signed. The young bellman kept his career and is a supervisor himself now. A good one. I made sure his name stayed clean. And Rask was pulled off supervising, faced the regulator's action, and answered for keeping a man down on bad gas, the exact thing he'd tried to hang on me. I still dive. Still the hard jobs, still slow on my checks the way the young lads time and laugh at, and I still call abort the second the gas tastes wrong, and I have never once been sorry I did. And sometimes down there in the dark with the work going well, and the breathing clean, and the bell right where it should be, I think about how the whole time they were calling me the diver who panicked, the thing that was going to save me was a recorder up in dive control, keeping my own calm voice asking to come up. I built 18 years on everybody coming back up. It turned out the tape had been keeping that record right alongside me the whole time.